Welcome to Science and Technology Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Nvidia and iPhone maker Foxconn tie up to build AI factories. ASML reports third quarter net profit of $2 billion, sees 2024 sales flat. ASML order slump catapults China's share of sales ahead of ban. KKR's Japan chip gear IPO clears high first bar. Doubts linger over Biden's industrial push. Nvidia and iPhone maker Foxconn tie up to build AI factories. Financial Times. Nvidia and Foxconn have announced plans to build artificial intelligence factories together as Foxconn looks to diversify its business. The Taiwanese electronics manufacturer will use Nvidia's chips and software to create data centers to power a range of applications including autonomous vehicles and robotics. The announcement came a day after the U.S. tightened rules on AI chip sales to China, including a ban on Nvidia selling two modified versions of its GPUs. ASML reports third quarter net profit of $2 billion, sees 2024 sales flat. Reuters. ASML Holding, the semiconductor equipment maker, has reported Q3 earnings of €1.9 billion, $2.01 billion, in line with analyst expectations. The company also said it expects 2024 sales to be about flat. ASML is the dominant player in the market for lithography systems, which are used by chip makers to create circuitry. CEO Peter Wennink noted that the semiconductor industry is currently at the bottom of the cycle but expects the inflection point to be visible by the end of the year. He added that ASML expects sales growth of 30% for 2023, but 2024 is expected to be a transition year. ASML order slump catapults China's share of sales ahead of ban. Bloomberg. ASML Holding has reported a 42% plunge in order bookings in Q3 amid a semiconductor industry slump. The company said sales in China accounted for 46% of revenue in the period, compared with 24% the previous quarter. ASML has been targeted by the U.S. effort to curb exports of advanced technology to China. The Dutch government is to prevent the company from shipping some immersion deep ultraviolet lithography machines to China without a license. The U.S. announced additional export curbs this week. KKR's Japan chip gear IPO clears high first bar. Reuters breaking views. Private equity firm KKR is set to launch the largest IPO in Japan in 5 years, with the listing of semiconductor tool maker Kokusai Electric. The timing of the IPO is seen as advantageous, as Japan's stock market has been performing well and it is the bottom of the semiconductor cycle. The IPO has gained strong backing from global money managers Capital Research and Management and Lazard Asset Management, who bought nearly half of the offering. KKR owns 46% of Kokusai and has a strong incentive for the stock to perform well in the secondary market. However, the elongated listing process in Japan could pose a challenge, as the shares will only start trading in 1 week's time. There are concerns that global markets could be affected by escalating conflict in the Middle East during this period. Despite this, a successful IPO for Kokusai would send a positive signal to Japan Inc. Doubts linger over Biden's industrial push. Financial Times. The U.S. is experiencing a boom in factory building, raising hopes of a manufacturing renaissance in the country. Over $200 billion worth of construction projects have been announced since the passage of 2 pieces of legislation in August 2022. However, some question whether this boom is sustainable, as it is driven by clean energy tax credits and subsidies that are set to expire in 10 years. Others insist that the flurry of activity represents a historic shift and the reversal of globalization. President Joe Biden's policies have spurred foreign investment in semiconductor, electric vehicle, and clean energy plants. The COVID-19 pandemic has also prompted many U.S. companies to rethink their production and shorten supply chains due to disruptions and the risk of sourcing materials and parts far from home. The localization of production is also being driven by a global surge in new trade restrictions, such as investment restrictions in China's tech sector and tariffs. However, barriers to making the boom sustainable include a shortage of critical minerals required for clean energy and a tight labor market. Worries over skills gap overshadow jobs boom. Financial Times. The U.S. manufacturing industry is struggling to find workers with the skills necessary to operate high-tech facilities, posing a risk to the Biden administration's plans to create good-paying jobs in manufacturing through its recovery plan. Companies including Intel and Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company have pledged to spend over $200 billion on more than 100 projects to create tens of thousands of jobs, but raw material shortages and a lack of skilled workers have delayed construction. The semiconductor industry is expected to add 115,000 positions by 2030, but up to 58% of these may go unfilled due to a lack of qualified graduates. Even the periodic table must bow to the reality of war. Financial Times. Geopolitical tensions between Russia and the West are harming scientific research, particularly in the field of chemistry, where international collaboration is key. Sanctions have led to the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California severing ties with Russia's Joint Institute of Nuclear Research, ending a long-standing partnership. However, other countries, including Germany and Japan, are planning to continue the search for new elements, with the aim of eventually completing the periodic table. Biden EU summit in Washington, here's what to look out for. Bloomberg. The European Union's top officials, Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel, will meet with President Joe Biden for a joint summit in Washington this week. Originally focused on Ukraine, trade and countering China, the visit now has a sense of urgency due to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. The EU and the US are expected to reaffirm their commitment to supporting Ukraine, discuss ways to restrict Russia's trade and address issues related to steel, aluminum and critical minerals. The summit will also explore collaboration on export controls, investment and disinformation. Hello, viewers. I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 degrees. Today, we have a mix of news from the semiconductor industry, geopolitics, and international collaborations. Let's dive in. First up, Nvidia and Foxconn are teaming up to build AI factories. Foxconn, known for its iPhone production, is looking to diversify its business and will use Nvidia's chips and software to power data centers for autonomous vehicles and robotics. This announcement comes at a time when the US has tightened rules on AI chip sales to China, making the partnership even more significant. ASML Holding, the semiconductor equipment maker, reported a third-quarter net profit of $2 billion, in line with expectations. The company expects 2024 sales to be flat but anticipates an inflection point by the end of this year. However, ASML's order bookings saw a significant slump, with sales in China accounting for 46% of revenue, as the US has imposed restrictions on exports to China. In Japan, private equity firm KKR is set to launch the largest IPO in 5 years with semiconductor tool maker Kokusai Electric. The timing of this IPO is seen as advantageous, and with strong backing from global money managers, it could send a positive signal to Japan Incorporated. However, concerns linger about potential market volatility due to the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Shifting gears to the US, there are hopes of a manufacturing renaissance as the country experiences a boom in factory building. President Biden's policies and the impact of the pandemic have spurred foreign investment in various sectors, including semiconductors and clean energy. However, doubts remain about the sustainability of this boom, as it is driven by temporary clean energy tax credits and subsidies. In the US manufacturing industry, there's a struggle to find workers with the necessary skills to operate high-tech facilities. This poses a risk to the Biden administration's plan to create good-paying jobs in manufacturing. Despite companies pledging billions of dollars to create jobs, a shortage of skilled workers and raw materials is hindering progress. Geopolitical tensions between Russia and the West are also impacting scientific research, particularly in chemistry. Sanctions have severed important collaborations, but other countries are stepping up to continue the search for new elements and complete the periodic table. Lastly, the Biden EU summit in Washington is set to address various issues, including Ukraine, trade, and countering China. The recent conflict between Israel and Hamas has added urgency to the discussions. The summit will explore collaboration on export controls, investment, and countering disinformation. That's all for today's news roundup. It's fascinating to see how geopolitics and industry dynamics intersect. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of these developments? Do you have any questions? Let's discuss. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.